But the thing is, in order to produce different kinds of realities, we need to ally with new sensitivities, with new bodies, if you will. We cannot use the same materials, to put it in Einstein's way, to fashion novelty. So the monster is appropriately scary, right?
Hello, Sounds True One friends. Welcome. I want to share with you that there are certain moments in my professional life at Sounds True where I feel deeply honored, deeply lucky, deeply privileged. And this is one of those moments, to be able to host this conversation. And I'm so happy, Sounds True One members, that you're here with me in this episode of Insights at the Edge. My guests are Resmaa Menakem. He's joining us from Minneapolis. Bayo Akomolafe, joining us from India, and Orland Bishop from Los Angeles. These are three Black men who have joined together, and we're going to be hearing more about this, to create a special event series. It begins in Los Angeles, June 24th and 25th. Then later in September, travels to Brazil. And then we find ourselves in December in Ghana. This is the African slave trade diaspora in reverse. And we're going to hear a lot more about this. Their inspiration, the origin of this very special Three Black Men tour. You can learn more about it at threeblackmen.com. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about our three guests. Orland Bishop is a lineage holder in the African Gnosis tradition. He's the founder and director of ShadeTree Multicultural Foundation in Los Angeles, where he has pioneered approaches to urban truces and mentoring at-risk youth, using an approach that combines new ideas with traditional ways of knowledge. We have with us Resmaa Menakem, a healer, author, psychotherapist, master coach who specializes in healing the effects of trauma and the relationship between trauma, white body supremacy, and racism in America. He teaches somatic abolitionism and is the author of the New York Times bestseller, My Grandmother's Hands. And we have with us Bayo Akomolafe, poet, philosopher, psychologist, professor, and someone who is passionate about the preposterous. Rooted with the Yoruba people in a more than human world. Bayo is a father, a grateful life partner, son and brother. He's the founder of the Emergence network, and he's a host of the online post-activist course, We Will Dance with Mountains. Resmaa, Bayo, Orland, welcome.
Hey.
Very nice to be here.
Thank you. Very nice.
Happy to be here, Tami.
Yes.
Right here at the beginning, for people who are hearing about this Three Black Men tour for the very first time, share with us how the three of you came together and how this idea emerged.
Since Bayo's the oldest, she should probably go.
I can only offer a partial story of how this came to be. I like to root this project in history, but also out of history, that there's a sense in which our coming together is and I use the word in very specific ways, a prophetic assemblage, right? And by prophetic, I mean that I don't mean to predict the future. I mean there are forces beyond the machinations of linear time that seem to have miraculously, I think that's a good word to throw into the mix, miraculously assembled and convened us. But if we're to speak about the historicity of our assemblage, then I would be offering gratitude to our dear sister Victoria Santos, who had a nudging to bring us together, to convene us, to just have a conversation. I think it was around fried chicken. And we talked about fried chicken, but that led to something else.
That's right.
And we realized we wanted to be with each other, and our scholarship and our antecedents, our experiences, our intellectualism, our offerings found a home in each other's work. So we're here because of that and many more. Yeah.
You mentioned
that any better.
Prophetic assemblage. And one of the things I feel very deeply in tuning in to the Three Black Men tour is this interesting convergence of past, present, being together, right here, right now, being with you, all of us who are listening, being with you, this moment, and then the future, and how all three time zones are converging in this very interesting way. And I wonder if you could each speak about your experience of that, of the past, present, and future coexisting in your consciousness, how you experience that.
For me, I've been writing for a while now. I've been writing and reading and sitting with people and documenting things and rereading and scribing and doing all that different type of stuff. And one of the things that has happened for me is that sometimes, especially with the material that I deal with all the time, the material around white supremacy, white body supremacy, brutality, trauma, that different type of stuff, you can get very like jaded and tunnel vision about creators. And one of the things that attracted me to this was two things. The first one was that Victoria had experience with each one of us three individually and had been mentioning both of these brothers to me for a while, right? And I believe she was doing the same thing with my two brothers. And so there had been this seeding that she saw, or that she started doing, because she saw how we were coming at this from different places, but the same, but rooted in some of the same type of ideas. And so for me, this concept, what I've learned from work from now, being and loving and being around my two brothers, is this piece around like the beginning, like the past, the future, and the present really is a nomenclature that we use in order for us to not be able to deal with the monstrous or the traumatic, or be able to sense ourselves in ritual. And so for me, this process for me has really helped me begin to understand that there's other angles and other ways that I can learn from and be nurtured in, and I don't need to use what I've been using in order to kind of look at things and work with stuff.
Resmaa, can I ask you, when you use the word monstrous, because I know in describing the Three Black Men tour, one of the billboards, if you will, is a conversation on trauma, ritual, and the promise of the monstrous. And of course, that got my attention. You know, you see monstrous. I saw monsters and everything, and I was like, "What's going on? What's the promise of the monstrous?"
Right. Well, I'm gonna let brother Bayo kick into that, because he has a much better way of working with that than I do.
I was looking forward to Brother Orland speaking, but I could say a thing or two about the monstrous. In my conception of the monstrous, I think of it as a gash or a crack in the road that forbids continuity, right? Like a fissure, a rift, a metabolic rift that is not a place of inadequacy, but is a place of generative spillage and excessiveness, right? In which Wendell Berry would often say that the stream, the impeded stream, is the one that sings. So this idea of an obstacle, an impediment that proliferates errancy, a strain away from the familiar, that is the monstrous. We often think of the monster, which is a cultural tool, a pervasive multicultural technology. We use the monster in our stories to mark boundaries, right? Don't go here. This is where you stay, right? But there comes a time when we are invited to those edges, to those liminal borders, and we need to stay there, right? So we're speaking about prophecy a while ago. I don't think of prophecy, like I said, as a prediction of the future. I think of prophecy as monstrous, as monstrosity. Prophecy is a reconvening of time altogether, right? It's like a crossroads. It's where the past and the present and future are no longer resourced in the ways that we think about time. And so they have to do something different, right? And so something spills from that place. And that is the source of exquisite novelty and co-becomings and new transformative potentials, right? So the promise of the monstrous is an invitation for us to sit with trouble, right? In those places that modernity would like to flatten and would like to efface. Modernity is the effacement of thresholds. That place where the city would like to press away and say, "No, just keep on walking. It's a highway here." The invitation is to stay there and to sit with it, right? Yeah, that's the monster.
Yeah. Just one more question about that, and then I want to bring Orland in, especially in this question of the time zones, history, future, and where we are right now. But, Bayo, I think of monsters as scary. Mm-hmm. So when you say to sit with it, I wonder if you can address this response inside of, you could have used a different image for stopping and contemplating, but monsters sound scary. So sitting with this thing that we're afraid of, it brings up fear in some way.
Yes, I mean, we live, let me put it this way, that we live in curated experiences that we mistake for everything else, right? Like we have, a French philosopher Deleuze would speak about assemblages. So we live in these assemblages, or we live within these assemblages that have heterogeneous networks of emotions and possibilities and bodies, technologies, textures. That's what we call modernity, right? We exteriorize, or we postpone, or we push out other kinds of feelings like fear and stuff like that. But the thing is, in order to produce different kinds of realities, we need to ally with new sensitivities, with new bodies, if you will. We cannot use the same materials, to put it in Einstein's way, to fashion novelty. So the monster is appropriately scary, right? Mm-hmm. But it's only scary from the point of view of a stable, modern, civilizational ethic, right? It's scary to us because we have been habituated into the city, into the familiar, into noticing bodies, ableist environments. Like, this is what it means to be proper. This is what it means to be human. And then something shocks that, right? It's not inherently scary, but it shocks our senses. And this shock to the sense is the invitation to novelty, to newness, to transformation. That is why transformation is disabling. Yes. Right. We cannot walk, all the stories, the Afro-diasporic spiritualities are about people transforming into the more than human into birds, into something different. The 1803 Igbo landing, they flew into birds, right? Fugitivity, the Great Dismal Swamp, right? They hid their bodies. They put mud on their bodies to hide away from their masters, right? So all these things are about becoming monster. Like, that's the work. We need to align or ally our bodies with the more than human, with the more than familiar and the scary. And maybe in doing that, we might happen upon new senses.
Orland.
If I may add just one more point to this monstrous characterization. It has been observed and actually been shared that police officers in the United States, when they see a young Black man, they see a monster.
Yes.
They've actually said it. That has caused the death of these young people because they could not reconcile what the souls of a Black man carries as future. They prefer to kill that person than to allow the future to emerge with a living body. They've actually described it. They thought something scary was going to happen. This is in the psyche, that future is actually scary, and people want to normalize reality to the degree in which we avoid dealing with the complexity that the human life is bringing into the world, particularly Black men. The idea of calling these gatherings Three Black Men is to actually highlight the fear that if two or more of Black men gather, something is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not going to always happen in the best way for society.
Right.
This is to correct, actually to create a pedagogy that if you can look at Three Black Men meeting, you would see the sacred. You would see the complexity of history and future simultaneously converging. And it actually represents the kind of sacred hospitality that we want to demonstrate, that we can actually bring men together and it'd be peaceful, it'd be harmonious, it'd be musical. It could be tributary towards a higher aspiration. And the monster could be welcomed into the world.
Yeah.
So that the psychology of fear does not keep propagating this kind of violence against those whose souls are monstrous, because we have to actually demonstrate a kind of miracle for this world. For the psyche that have suppressed and avoided seeing Black men clearly for who we are. This is time that the veil be removed and the monster be let into society. So that we reconcile not the monster, but the fear that we have allowed to inhabit our psyche for so long. Most heroic journeys used to be monstrous. People used to risk death to be initiated. But to walk through the streets of America and be killed as an initiation is not just anymore.
Yes.
You can't be on your way home and die. That is not acceptable because you carry the monstrous in your life. That is not anymore allowed to happen. And we want to open up a conversation about the soul and the future that a soul must host, so that the repetition of this horrific mistake of projecting upon Black men, the biggest fear, is not going to allow us to get past this tragic circumstances.